I'm Sarah Morgan, 36, and I built a tech empire worth billions while letting my husband Ryan take all the credit. Our marriage had been failing for months, but nothing prepared me for the annual family dinner at our mansion when Ryan walked in with a pregnant woman on his arm. He expected me to crumble, to have a meltdown in front of our families. Instead, I smiled, knowing something he had forgotten. Every contract, every patent, every dollar of his supposed empire belonged to me. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from in the comments and subscribe to hear more stories about women reclaiming their power. Growing up in a middle-class family in Boston shaped my view of success. My parents worked hard, my father as an accountant and my mother as a high school teacher. They instilled in me the value of education and independence, especially for a woman. Never depend on anyone else for your livelihood, my mother would say while grading papers at our kitchen table late into the night. I took that advice to heart. From selling custom friendship bracelets in elementary school to creating a lawn mowing business in high school, entrepreneurship flowed in my veins. When it came time for college, I earned a scholarship to MIT, double majoring in business and computer science. My classmates would often find me in the library at 3 in the morning, coding or drafting business plans while they stumbled back from parties. That's where I met Ryan Morgan during my graduate program. He was handsome in that clean-cut, future CEO way, with piercing blue eyes and a smile that could convince anyone of anything. While I was brilliant with technology and business strategy, Ryan excelled at presentation, networking, and making people believe in his vision, even when that vision was originally mine. "We're going to change the world together," he'd whisper as we stayed up late in my apartment, planning our future. I believed him. I fell for his charm, his ambition that seemed to match my own, and the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating person he'd ever met. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Within a year of dating, we were married in a small ceremony with just our families present. The early days of our marriage were everything I'd hoped for. We supported each other, challenged each other, and dreamed together. Ryan worked at a venture capital firm while I developed my skills at a leading tech company, but every night we'd brainstorm ideas for our own business. The breakthrough came when I identified a critical gap in cloud security infrastructure. I spent 6 months developing a revolutionary algorithm that could protect sensitive data while simultaneously improving processing speed. When I showed Ryan my prototype, his eyes lit up. "This is it, Sarah. This is our ticket." Together, we formed SecureStream Technologies. The business plan was meticulous, but when we started meeting with potential investors, we noticed something troubling. Despite my technical expertise, investors directed their questions to Ryan. They seemed uncomfortable with a woman explaining complex algorithms. "It's just how this industry works," Ryan said after another frustrating meeting. "What if we present it differently? I'll be the face of the company, the CEO that investors can relate to. You'll be the genius behind the scenes making everything work." I reluctantly agreed. We even decided to present the company as primarily his vision to the public, with me as the supportive wife and CTO. But I wasn't completely naive. I made sure our legal agreements reflected the reality. I owned 51% of the company, the patents for the technology were in my name, and Ryan signed extensive contracts acknowledging my primary role. "It's just for show," he assured me. "We both know whose brain is running this operation." Within 2 years, SecureStream Technologies took off beyond our wildest expectations. Major corporations adopted our security protocols. The government contracted with us. Our initial public offering broke records. We moved from our modest apartment to a mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood. We traveled by private jet. Ryan appeared on the covers of business magazines while I worked tirelessly behind the scenes, developing new technology and expanding our services. I noticed the first changes in Ryan about 3 years into our success. The man who once looked at me with admiration began to believe the press about himself. He started referring to my company instead of our company in interviews. At dinner parties, he would tell stories about the founding of SecureStream that erased my contributions entirely. "That's not how it happened," I said quietly after one such party. "It's a better story this way," he replied, not meeting my eyes. "More inspirational." I let it slide, telling myself it didn't matter who got the credit as long as we were building something meaningful together. But that was just the beginning of Ryan forgetting who had really built his empire. 3 years into our successful business venture, the distance between Ryan and me grew from a crack to a chasm. The late nights at the office became more frequent. The business trips extended longer than necessary. The way he avoided my gaze when I asked simple questions about his day raised red flags I couldn't ignore. "How was your meeting with the Facebook team?" I asked one evening as he finally came home around midnight. "Fine," he muttered, pouring himself a whiskey. "They loved the pitch." "That's strange," I said, keeping my voice level. "Because Mark called me directly this afternoon to reschedule for next week." Ryan froze with the glass halfway to his lips. "I meant the Google team." "You weren't scheduled to meet with Google either." He slammed the glass down. "For God's sake, Sarah, do you have to monitor my every move? I'm running a billion-dollar company. I have meetings that don't make it onto the shared calendar. I tried everything to save our marriage." I suggested date nights, which he consistently canceled at the last minute. I booked couples therapy, which he attended twice before declaring it a waste of valuable time. I even planned a surprise vacation to Bora Bora, only to end up going alone because he claimed to have an emergency board meeting that couldn't be rescheduled. "The company has to come first right now," he would say, as if I wasn't the one who had created the technology that the entire business was built upon. When I tried to talk about the state of our marriage, Ryan became a master of gaslighting. "You're being paranoid," or "you're just insecure about your contributions," or my personal favorite, "maybe if you were more supportive, I wouldn't need to work so hard." The breaking point came when I borrowed his phone to make a call after mine died. A text notification popped up. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear that red dress I love." The sender was saved as AK. That night, I hired Patricia Winters, a private investigator recommended by my college roommate who had gone through a similar situation. Patricia was discreet, thorough, and had no connections to anyone in our social circle. Within 2 weeks, she provided me with a detailed report and photographs. Ryan had been meeting regularly with a woman named Amanda Keller, a 28-year-old former model who now worked in public relations. The photographs showed them dining at intimate restaurants, entering hotels together, and even shopping for jewelry. I sat in my home office, staring at the images spread across my desk. The pain was physical, like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it burst. But beneath the pain was something else. Cold, clear anger. I didn't confront Ryan immediately. Instead, I focused on gathering information and protecting myself. I scheduled a discreet meeting with my personal attorney to review all of our contracts and agreements. I made copies of important documents and stored them in multiple secure locations. I began quietly transferring funds into accounts that only I could access. Meanwhile, I threw myself into expanding our business empire. While Ryan was occupied with his affair, I negotiated a major acquisition of our largest competitor, Quantum Shield. The move would not only eliminate our biggest threat in the market, but also give us access to complementary technology that would make our services indispensable to every major corporation in the world. I worked day and night on the deal, attending meetings with Quantum Shield executives, conducting due diligence, and planning the integration of their technology with ours. Ryan was barely involved, showing up only for the final signing ceremony where he took all the credit in front of the press. "This strategic acquisition has been my vision from the beginning," he told reporters, standing at the podium while I watched from the sidelines. SecureStream is now positioned to dominate the cybersecurity landscape for decades to come. I smiled for the cameras, playing my assigned role of the supportive wife, all while knowing that the acquisition had been entirely my initiative, my negotiation, my vision for the future of the company. And most importantly, as the majority shareholder, it was my decision that had made it happen, not his. That night, as Ryan claimed to be working late again, I sat alone in our home theater, watching his interview about the acquisition on the financial news networks. As he spoke about his accomplishment, I made a decision. I would no longer allow him to take credit for my work, my intelligence, my empire. The question was not if I would reclaim what was mine, but when and how. The opportunity presented itself sooner than I expected, with our upcoming annual family dinner. The tradition of hosting an annual family dinner at our mansion began 3 years ago, when we first moved into the 20,000-square-foot estate in Belmont. Ryan had insisted on showcasing our success to both families, and I had agreed, thinking it would be a nice way to bring everyone together. This year's dinner was scheduled for the first Saturday in June. Despite our marital troubles, I decided to proceed with the event. In fact, it seemed like the perfect setting for whatever needed to happen next in our unraveling relationship. I sent elegant handwritten invitations to both of our families. My parents, William and Elizabeth Caldwell, still lived in the same modest home in Boston where I grew up. My brother James and his wife Natalie would drive up from Providence with their 2 children. Ryan's family included his parents, Robert and Diane Morgan, wealthy but not extraordinarily so until our success had elevated their social standing, and his younger sister Kimberly. In the weeks leading up to the dinner, Ryan's behavior grew increasingly suspicious. He came home less frequently, sometimes not returning for days. When he did appear, he was distracted, constantly checking his phone and making excuses to take calls in private. 2 weeks before the dinner, I found a pregnancy test in the bathroom trash. Positive. I knew immediately it wasn't mine, as Ryan and I hadn't been intimate in months. The discovery should have devastated me, but instead, it brought clarity. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The morning of the dinner arrived, and Ryan hadn't come home the night before. I sent him a text, "Don't forget our family dinner tonight at 7. He replied with a terse, "I'll be there." I spent the day preparing myself mentally and emotionally for whatever might unfold. I meditated in my private garden, repeating to myself, "You are strong. You built this empire. No one can take it from you." At 10 in the morning, I met with Gerald Finch, my personal attorney, in his downtown office rather than asking him to come to the house. "Are all the documents in order?" I asked, sitting across from his imposing mahogany desk. Gerald nodded, his expression serious. "Everything is as you requested, Sarah. The majority shareholding is confirmed in your name. The patents for the core technology are solely in your name. The prenuptial agreement clearly states that intellectual property brought into the company by either party remains with that party in the event of a divorce. And the new acquisition? The Quantum Shield deal has been structured exactly as you directed. Ryan has no direct control over that subsidiary. As CEO, he's nominally in charge, but your position as executive chairperson and majority shareholder gives you the authority to remove him at any time." I took a deep breath. "Thank you, Gerald. I hope I won't need any of this tonight, but it's always best to be prepared," he finished for me. "Would you like me to be on standby this evening?" I considered it but shook my head. "No. This is a family matter. I'll handle it." Back at home, I supervised the catering staff as they prepared an exquisite 5-course meal. I selected my outfit carefully, a fitted midnight blue dress that exuded confidence and authority, paired with the diamond earrings I had bought myself to celebrate our first million in revenue. As I applied my makeup, I practiced maintaining a neutral expression no matter what might happen. I rehearsed responses to various scenarios in my head. I was determined not to give Ryan the satisfaction of seeing me lose composure. Our families began arriving at 6:30. My parents hugged me warmly, my father whispering, "You look tired, sweetheart. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, Dad," I assured him with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. My brother James gave me a knowing look. He had always been perceptive about my feelings, even when I tried to hide them. "Where's Ryan?" he asked, glancing around. "He'll be here soon," I replied smoothly. "You know how busy he is." Ryan's parents arrived with their usual air of entitled expectation. His father immediately headed for the bar while his mother complained about the traffic. His sister Kimberly at least had the grace to bring flowers and thank me for hosting. As 7 o'clock approached, I gathered everyone in the formal living room for pre-dinner cocktails. I moved among our guests, refilling glasses and making small talk, all while a storm brewed inside me. No one except possibly James seemed to notice anything amiss, though I caught my mother watching me with concern several times. At 7:15, with Ryan still absent, his father Robert checked his watch ostentatiously. "Should we start without him?" he asked, not bothering to hide his impatience. "Let's give him a few more minutes," I suggested calmly. "I'm sure he's just caught in traffic." At 7:30, I heard the distinctive sound of Ryan's Maserati pulling into the circular driveway. But instead of the immediate sound of the front door opening, there was a pause, voices, a woman's laugh. Every muscle in my body tensed, but outwardly I remained composed. I moved to stand at the center of the room, glass of champagne in hand, and waited. The front door opened, and the moment that would change everything finally arrived. The double doors to our living room swung open, and Ryan strode in with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the world. But he wasn't alone. Clinging to his arm was a woman I recognized immediately from the private investigator's photographs, Amanda Keller. She was undeniably beautiful, with long blonde hair cascading over her shoulders and striking green eyes. Her figure was slim except for the unmistakable swell of her belly beneath her form-fitting red dress. I estimated she was about 5 months pregnant. The room fell into a shocked silence. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Ryan's father nearly dropped his whiskey glass. My brother James took a protective step toward me. Ryan surveyed the frozen scene with a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. He clearly expected chaos, tears, a scene that would make me look unstable and emotional. "Sorry we're late," he announced to the room, not sounding sorry at all. "I'd like everyone to meet Amanda." His arm tightened around her waist. "The future Mrs. Morgan and the mother of my child." Amanda offered a nervous smile, her eyes darting around the room before settling on me with a mixture of challenge and guilt. "It's so nice to finally meet you all," she said in a soft Southern accent. "Ryan has told me so much about his family." My mother-in-law found her voice first. "Ryan, what is the meaning of this?" she hissed, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment or both. Ryan had the audacity to look surprised by the reaction. "I thought it was time everyone met the woman I love. Sarah and I have been separated for months now, haven't we, Sarah?" All eyes turned to me. This was his strategy, I realized. Create a public scene, claim we had been separated, make it seem like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. Classic gaslighting, and he expected me to play right into it with tears or rage. Instead, I took a slow sip of my champagne and spoke in a clear, steady voice. "This is the first I'm hearing of any separation, Ryan. But please, do introduce Amanda to everyone properly." Confusion flickered across his face, quickly replaced by determination. "Well, it's been obvious to me that our marriage has been over for some time. I've been trying to find the right moment to make it official." He turned to address the entire room. "I want a quick, amicable divorce so Amanda and I can start our family properly. I'm hoping we can all be adults about this." My father stepped forward, his usually gentle face hardened with anger. "You bring your mistress to a family dinner while still married to my daughter, and you have the nerve to talk about being adults?" "Bill, please," I said, touching his arm gently. "Let's not make a scene." I turned to Amanda, who was shifting uncomfortably under the weight of everyone's stares. "Amanda, welcome to our home. You must be hungry. We were just about to start dinner." Ryan looked thrown off balance by my composure. He had expected me to fall apart, to scream or cry or throw them out. My calm acceptance was clearly not in his script. You want us to stay for dinner? Amanda asked uncertainly, looking up at Ryan. Of course, I replied before Ryan could answer. Everyone's here now. The chef has prepared an amazing meal. It would be a shame to waste it. I gestured toward the dining room. Shall we? As our stunned families filed into the dining room, Ryan grabbed my arm, holding me back. What are you playing at? He whispered harshly. I removed his hand from my arm. I'm being a gracious hostess, Ryan. Isn't that what you always wanted? The perfect wife who never embarrasses you in public. His eyes narrowed. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It certainly isn't. The seating arrangement I had planned was now awkward, with Ryan and Amanda taking seats opposite me at our long mahogany table. The first course was served in tense silence, broken only by the clink of silverware against fine china. My brother James attempted to ease the tension. So, Amanda, what do you do for work? Amanda brightened at being addressed directly. I'm in public relations. That's actually how Ryan and I met at the launch party for SecureStream's new corporate headquarters. Fascinating, my mother said in a tone that indicated it was anything but. And how long have you two been acquainted? About a year, Amanda replied, placing her hand over Ryan's on the table. It was love at first sight, wasn't it, baby? Ryan nodded, watching me for a reaction I refused to give him. Sometimes you just know when something is right. And when something isn't, I added quietly, raising my glass in a mock toast. Ryan's sister Kimberly, always the most straightforward of the Morgan family, addressed the elephant in the room. So you're what, 5 months pregnant? That means you got pregnant while my brother was very much still living with his wife. Amanda had the grace to blush. It wasn't planned, but we're so happy about it. Ryan is going to be an amazing father. Speaking of amazing, Ryan said loudly, clearly wanting to change the subject. I just closed a deal that's going to take SecureStream to the next level. We're acquiring a major government contract that will double our valuation. And just like that, he was off, boasting about business achievements that were largely my doing, painting a future where he would continue growing his empire with Amanda by his side. I'm thinking of bringing Amanda on as our new PR director, he announced. She has brilliant ideas for repositioning the company. Amanda nodded eagerly. I've been studying the tech industry for years. I think SecureStream has only scratched the surface of its potential. I watched them, this couple building castles in the air with my bricks. Ryan had completely forgotten, or chosen to ignore, that he didn't have the authority to hire directors without board approval, a board that I controlled. As the main course was served, Ryan grew more expansive in his plans and boasts. He detailed how he would restructure the company, move headquarters to New York, expand into international markets. With each pronouncement, Amanda gazed at him adoringly, while our families shifted uncomfortably. You seem to have it all figured out, I commented when he finally paused for breath. I've always been the visionary, he replied with stunning arrogance. You know that, Sarah. The dessert course arrived, an elegant chocolate souffle that no one seemed particularly interested in eating. Ryan, emboldened by my continued composure, decided to deliver his final blow. He stood, raising his glass. I'd like to propose a toast, he announced, his voice carrying across the silent table. To new beginnings. He looked directly at me as he said it, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. He was waiting for me to break, to show some crack in my facade that would justify his narrative of me as the unstable, emotional soon-to-be ex-wife. Instead, I also rose to my feet, my own glass in hand. It was time. I stood at my place at the table, champagne flute held delicately between my fingers, and smiled at Ryan. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile a cat might give a mouse right before pouncing. I'd like to offer a toast as well, I said, my voice clear and steady. To building something from nothing. To the power of vision, hard work, and protecting what's yours. Ryan's smirk faltered slightly, but he raised his glass nonetheless, clearly wondering where I was going with this. I continued, addressing the entire table but keeping my eyes on Ryan. There's something magical about creating a company from scratch. About seeing a need in the market that no one else has identified. About developing technology so revolutionary that it transforms an entire industry. I took a small sip of champagne before continuing. When I developed the adaptive security algorithm that became the foundation of SecureStream Technologies, I was working out of our tiny apartment, coding until 3 in the morning while Ryan was asleep. Amanda's adoring gaze at Ryan shifted to confusion. "You developed the algorithm?" she asked me. "Oh, yes," I replied. "In fact, I hold all the patents for SecureStream's core technology. Solely in my name." Ryan set his glass down hard, champagne sloshing over the rim. "Sarah, this isn't the time or place." "On the contrary," I said. "Since you've chosen to bring your future plans for my company into this family dinner, this seems like exactly the right time and place." I reached down beside my chair and lifted the briefcase I'd placed there earlier. "I have some documents I think everyone might find interesting." I opened the briefcase and began distributing copies of papers to everyone at the table. "This is the original patent filing for SecureStream's core technology. You'll note my name as the sole inventor." I handed out another set. "This is our company's shareholder agreement, showing that I own 51% of all voting shares." Another document made its way around the table. "And this is the prenuptial agreement that Ryan signed, specifically protecting my intellectual property and business interests in the event of a divorce." The color drained from Ryan's face as he realized his monumental miscalculation. He had been so convinced of his own narrative, so certain that I would crumble in public, that he had completely forgotten the legal reality of our situation. "You can't do this," he said, his voice suddenly hoarse. "I already have," I replied calmly. "It's all there in black and white, signed by you." Amanda was frantically scanning the documents, her expression morphing from confusion to horror. "Ryan, what is this? You told me you founded the company. You said you were the majority owner." "He is the CEO," I clarified. "The public face of the company." A role he played very well, I might add. So well that he apparently began to believe his own press. My brother James was trying unsuccessfully to hide a smile. My parents exchanged glances of surprised pride. Ryan's family looked stunned, particularly his father, who had always treated me with thinly veiled condescension. "But the interviews," Amanda protested. "The magazine covers. All those profiles about your journey as a founder. A carefully constructed public image," I explained. "When we started the company, we discovered that investors and clients in the tech security space were more comfortable dealing with a male CEO. So Ryan became the face of the company, while I remained the brain behind it. A decision that served us well financially, though perhaps not personally." I turned my attention back to Ryan, who was now gripping the edge of the table, his knuckles white. "You forgot something else important, Ryan. The Quantum Shield acquisition that you've been taking credit for? I structured it so that subsidiary reports directly to me as executive chairperson. You have no authority over our newest and most valuable asset." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "This is ridiculous. You can't just take everything." "I'm not taking anything," I corrected him. "I'm simply maintaining ownership of what has always been mine. Though I suppose this does change your plans to install Amanda as PR director without board approval, doesn't it?" Amanda turned to Ryan, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You said you were bringing me in as PR director. You promised me a corner office and a team of my own, and the house in the Hamptons?" I asked her gently. "Did he promise you that too? Because that's also in my name." Tears welled in Amanda's eyes as the full picture became clear to her. She wasn't just the other woman. She was the other woman who had been lied to about nearly everything. "Is any of it true?" she asked Ryan, her voice breaking. "Do you even have any money of your own?" Ryan's jaw clenched. "Of course I do. My salary as CEO is 7 figures. The bonuses, the stock options. all of which could be affected by a termination for cause, I interjected. Like, for example, using company resources to fund an extramarital affair. Those hotel rooms you've been meeting in? Charged to the corporate account. The jewelry you bought her? Company credit card. The trips to look at real estate in the Hamptons? Logged as business development expenses. Ryan's mother gasped. His father swore under his breath. Amanda pushed away from the table and stood up, one hand protectively over her pregnant belly. I think I should go, she said, looking lost and confused. I'll have my driver take you home, I offered. I think you and Ryan have some things to discuss privately, but it doesn't have to be tonight. Ryan looked from Amanda to me and back again, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. This isn't over, he said, trying to sound threatening but coming across as desperate. You're right about that, I agreed. The divorce proceedings will take some time, but I think we both know how they'll end, given the documentation I've just shared. I turned to our families, who were watching the scene unfold with expressions ranging from shock to vindication. I apologize for the drama this evening. It wasn't what I had planned, but perhaps it's better to have everything out in the open. My father stood and came to my side, placing a supportive hand on my shoulder. I'm proud of you, Sarah. Not just for your success, but for how you're handling this. Ryan's sister Kimberly, always the most independent thinker in his family, looked at me with newfound respect. I had no idea you were the actual founder. Ryan never mentioned it. I'm sure there are many things Ryan hasn't mentioned, I replied, glancing at Amanda, who is now standing near the doorway, looking shell-shocked. Ryan grabbed Amanda's arm. We're leaving. Now. She pulled away from him. Don't touch me. I need to think. I'll call you tomorrow, he told her. Don't bother, she replied, then accepted my offer of the driver. After she left, Ryan turned to me, his face twisted with anger. You think you've won, but you haven't. I'm still the face of this company. The public trusts me, not some behind-the-scenes woman they've never heard of. I smiled, genuinely this time. That's where you're wrong, Ryan. The press release announcing my role as the true founder and inventor behind SecureStream's technology goes out tomorrow morning, along with the announcement that I'll be taking over as CEO effective immediately. His face drained of color once again. You can't do that. Board vote. 3-2 in favor. It's already done. And with that, I turned away from him, back to our families and what remained of our dinner, leaving Ryan standing alone with the ruins of the empire he had foolishly believed was his to give away. The immediate aftermath of my revelation was chaotic. Ryan stormed out of the house, peeling away in his Maserati with a screech of tires on pavement. Our families sat in stunned silence for several minutes before the questions began. Why didn't you tell us you were the real founder? My mother asked, hurt evident in her voice. At first it was a business decision, I explained. Then it became a habit. And finally, I suppose I was just waiting for Ryan to acknowledge my contributions publicly. Which he never did. Ryan's father, his face flushed with either embarrassment or anger, struggled to process this new reality. But all those interviews he gave, all those stories about developing the technology, were carefully constructed narratives I finished for him. Ryan has always been excellent at telling people what they want to hear. My brother James shook his head in disbelief. And you let him take credit all this time? Why? Because the success of the company was more important to me than public recognition, I said simply. Until Ryan decided that he not only deserved all the credit, but all the company as well. The evening ended awkwardly, with both families making excuses to leave early. My parents hugged me tightly before departing, my father whispering, "You call us if you need anything, anything at all." After everyone left, I moved through the empty rooms of the mansion, turning off lights and gathering abandoned glasses. When I reached our bedroom, I paused at the doorway, looking at the king-sized bed where Ryan and I had once planned our future together. The enormity of what had just happened, of what was still to come, hit me all at once. I sank to the floor, my back against the doorframe, and finally allowed myself to cry. Not delicate tears, but ugly, wrenching sobs that came from the deepest part of me. I cried for the marriage I had lost, for the years I had spent supporting a man who had been planning to discard me, for the public humiliation of discovering my husband's infidelity in such a dramatic fashion. The tears eventually subsided, leaving me empty, but somehow lighter. I pulled myself up, wiped my face, and began methodically removing Ryan's things from the closet, placing them in suitcases. By morning, there would be no trace of him in my bedroom. The following days brought a media frenzy as news of the situation leaked to the press. My carefully crafted press release about assuming the role of CEO was overshadowed by gossipy headlines about the personal drama. Tech power couple splits as husband's pregnant girlfriend revealed at family dinner. Financial news outlets took a more serious angle. SecureStream founder Sarah Caldwell Morgan takes CEO role, revealing she was always the technological genius behind the company. My phone rang constantly with calls from business associates, friends, and reporters seeking comments. I instructed my assistant to screen all calls and only put through those from key business partners who needed reassurance about the company's stability. Ms. Morgan, I have the CTO of Aerotech on line 1. My assistant informed me on the third morning after the dinner. He says they need to know who they should be dealing with on the security implementation. Put him through, I said, straightening my posture even though the call wasn't a video conference. Charles, thank you for calling. Yes, there have been some leadership changes, but I want to assure you that I've been personally overseeing your security implementation from the beginning. In fact, I designed the custom protocol for Aerotech myself. The conversation continued in this vein, with Charles gradually relaxing as he realized he was speaking to the actual technological mind behind the services his company had purchased. By the end of the call, he had invited me to address their board directly, something Ryan had never managed to arrange. Similar conversations played out with other key clients and partners. Many expressed surprise at learning I was the true founder, but quickly adapted to the new reality once they spoke with me directly and realized my deep technical knowledge. Ryan, meanwhile, was not taking his fall from grace gracefully. He made multiple attempts to enter the corporate headquarters, only to be turned away by security. He called board members, trying to rally support for his reinstatement. He even attempted to schedule meetings with our biggest clients, claiming he was still representing the company. His most desperate move came when he appeared unannounced at my office, barging past my assistant. "This has gone far enough, Sarah," he declared, standing in front of my desk with his hands planted on the surface. "You've made your point. Now, let's discuss a reasonable settlement." I looked up from my computer screen, maintaining a calm exterior despite my racing heart. "Security is on their way up, Ryan. I suggest you leave voluntarily before they arrive." "You can't just push me out of my own company," he shouted, his composure finally breaking. "I built relationships with every major client. I was the one on TV, in magazines. No one knows who you are." "That's changing rapidly," I replied. "And the clients seem quite comfortable dealing directly with the person who actually understands the technology they're paying millions for." "I want half," he demanded. "Half the company, half the assets. It's only fair after everything I've done." I couldn't help but laugh. "Everything you've done? You mean like using company funds to wine and dine your girlfriend? Or planning to install her in a key position? Or trying to force me out of the company I founded?" I shook my head. "The prenup is clear, Ryan. You get your salary and bonuses earned during our marriage. Nothing more." "I'll fight this," he threatened as security arrived at my door. "I'll make sure everyone knows what a cold, calculating bitch you really are." "You're welcome to try," I said as the security officers escorted him out. But I don't think anyone will be particularly surprised to learn that the woman who invented adaptive security algorithms is good at calculating. 2 weeks after the dinner incident, Amanda called me, requesting a private meeting. We met at a quiet cafe far from both our usual haunts. "I didn't know," she said immediately upon sitting down. about any of it. He told me he was separated, that the divorce was just a formality waiting to happen. He said he founded the company, that he was the majority owner. She twisted a napkin between her fingers. I feel so stupid. You're not stupid, I told her. Ryan is very convincing. I was married to him for 7 years, and even I didn't see how far he would go. She placed a protective hand over her baby bump. I don't know what to do now. He keeps calling, making promises about how we'll still have everything we planned. But I don't believe anything he says anymore. I felt a surprising surge of compassion for this woman. She was a victim of Ryan's lies too, albeit in a different way than I was. What do you want to do? She looked surprised at the question. What do you mean? For your future. For your baby's future. Setting aside Ryan entirely, what do you want? She thought for a moment. Security. Independence. I don't want to rely on anyone else's promises again. I nodded. Those are good goals. Achievable ones. I pulled out a business card and wrote a name and number on the back. This is my personal attorney. He can help you secure appropriate child support from Ryan regardless of what happens between you two. And this, I said, writing on another card, is the contact information for a friend who runs a boutique PR firm. Tell her I sent you. She's always looking for talented people. Amanda stared at the cards. Why would you help me? Because Ryan lied to both of us, I said simply. And because that baby is innocent in all of this. As I predicted, Ryan's attempts to negotiate a better divorce settlement went nowhere. His attorney, after reviewing all the documentation, advised him to accept the terms of the prenuptial agreement. He would walk away with his personal savings and investments, a respectable sum but nowhere near the wealth he had anticipated having. The most satisfying moment came when Ryan attempted to launch a competing security firm, boldly announcing his new venture at a hastily arranged press conference. Within hours, our legal team had filed for an injunction based on non-compete clauses in his employment contract and potential intellectual property violations. His fledgling company was dead before it even launched, investors quickly backing away when they realized the legal quagmire they would be entering. Meanwhile, I finally stepped into the public role I had avoided for so long. I gave interviews explaining the technology behind SecureStream in accessible terms. I appeared on panels discussing cybersecurity and women in tech. I testified before Congress about data protection requirements. With each public appearance, the narrative shifted. Ryan Morgan became a footnote in the SecureStream story, while Sarah Caldwell Morgan was recognized as the innovative founder who had revolutionized digital security. 3 months after the fateful dinner, I received a text message from Ryan. You've destroyed everything. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 6 months after the dinner that changed everything, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office, looking out at the Boston skyline. The autumn leaves created a vibrant tapestry of red and gold in the park below, a reminder that even the most difficult seasons eventually give way to new growth. The divorce was final, the papers signed without Ryan and me having to be in the same room. He had ultimately accepted the terms of the prenuptial agreement, likely realizing that fighting would only drain his limited resources. According to my lawyer, he had relocated to Miami and was attempting to rebuild his life with significantly reduced circumstances. Amanda had chosen not to continue a relationship with him after learning the full extent of his deceptions. She had given birth to a healthy baby boy and, with my recommendation, secured a position at a respected PR firm. Ryan had visitation rights, but seemed more interested in pursuing new romantic conquests than in building a relationship with his son. The media storm had eventually died down, replaced by genuine interest in my work and the future of SecureStream. I had been featured on the cover of Forbes with the headline, "The Real Genius Behind SecureStream: How Sarah Caldwell Morgan Built a Tech Empire from the Shadows." The article focused on my technological innovations rather than the personal drama, which was exactly how I wanted it. The transition hadn't been easy. There were nights when I woke up at 3 in the morning, my mind racing with all the things I should have said or done differently. There were days when the loneliness felt crushing, when I questioned whether exposing Ryan had been worth the personal cost. In those dark moments, I turned to the support systems I had neglected during my marriage. I reconnected with old friends from MIT who understood the pressure of being a woman in tech. I joined a discreet support group for high-profile individuals going through divorce, where I could speak freely about my experiences without fear of judgment or publicity. Most importantly, I started therapy with Dr. Eleanor Bennett, a no-nonsense psychologist who specialized in helping women recover from narcissistic relationships. "You've been carrying other people's expectations for too long," she told me during one particularly breakthrough session. First, society's expectations about what a tech founder should look like. Then Ryan's expectations about being the perfect supportive wife. When are you going to live according to your own expectations? It was a question that stayed with me, guiding my decisions as I rebuilt my life and company. The first major change I made was rebranding the company with my own name, Caldwell Security Systems. The new name acknowledged my family roots while looking toward the future. The second change was establishing a mentorship program specifically for female engineers and entrepreneurs. The Caldwell Innovation Initiative provided funding, guidance, and networking opportunities for women developing new technologies. I personally mentored 5 young women each year, sharing not just technical knowledge, but lessons about protecting their intellectual property and ensuring they received proper credit for their innovations. "I don't want any other woman to stay in the shadows the way I did," I explained during the program's launch event. "The next generation of female founders should stand proudly in the spotlight from day one." The program quickly gained recognition and support, with major tech companies pledging to hire graduates and provide additional funding. It became a source of immense satisfaction, watching these brilliant young women develop confidence in both their technical abilities and their right to be recognized for them. My personal life began to heal as well. I reconnected with Michael Donovan, a software architect I had known in college before meeting Ryan. We bumped into each other at a technology conference where I was the keynote speaker. "I always knew you were destined for great things," he told me over coffee afterward. "But I admit I didn't predict cybersecurity revolutionary who takes down her lying husband in epic fashion." I laughed, something that had become easier with time. That wasn't exactly in my 5-year plan either. Unlike Ryan, Michael had built his own successful career without needing to take credit for anyone else's work. He listened when I spoke, asked insightful questions about my technology, and never once seemed intimidated by my success. Our relationship developed slowly, based on mutual respect and genuine interest in each other's work and thoughts. One evening, as we walked along the Charles River, he asked the question I had been dreading. "Do you think you'll ever trust someone enough to get married again?" I considered carefully before answering. "I don't know." What happened with Ryan wasn't just about trust. It was about losing myself in someone else's narrative. About becoming a character in his story instead of the protagonist in my own. I looked out over the water. "I'm not sure I want to risk that again." Michael nodded, respecting my honesty. "For what it's worth, I think the protagonist in your story is pretty amazing exactly as she is. No editing required." It was exactly the right thing to say, and it opened the door to deeper possibilities between us. I wasn't ready to leap into another marriage, but I was slowly learning that not all relationships required me to diminish myself. The most unexpected development in my healing journey came when I decided to adopt a child as a single mother. I had always wanted children, but had put it off during my marriage as Ryan always had reasons why the timing wasn't right. Now, approaching 40, I realized I didn't need to wait for anyone else's approval or participation. The adoption process was lengthy and complex, but 8 months after beginning it, I welcomed 4-year-old Lily into my home. She had been in foster care for most of her life, a bright, resilient little girl who had already overcome more obstacles than most adults. "Is this my forever home?" she asked on her first night, her small hand clutching a worn stuffed rabbit as she looked around the bedroom I had prepared for her. "Yes, it is," I promised her. "And I'm your forever mom." Parenthood brought challenges I hadn't anticipated, but also a depth of joy I had never experienced. Lily's perspective helped me see the world differently, to focus on what truly mattered rather than corporate politics or public perception. I adjusted my work schedule to be home for dinner each night, to read bedtime stories, to attend parent-teacher conferences and dance recitals. A year after the infamous family dinner, I decided to host another gathering, but with a very different guest list. My parents' and brother's family were there, along with close friends, colleagues who had supported me through the transition, Michael, and, of course, Lily. As we sat around the table in the same dining room where everything had imploded, I looked at the faces of people who truly cared about me, who valued me for who I was rather than what I could do for them. I stood and raised my glass for a toast. To authentic relationships, to building things that last, and to owning your accomplishments without apology. Everyone raised their glasses in response, the atmosphere warm and genuine in a way the previous dinner never could have been. Later that evening, after most guests had left and Lily was asleep upstairs, Michael helped me carry dishes to the kitchen. "You know what I admire most about you?" he asked, loading the dishwasher. "It's not your business success or your brilliant mind, though those are certainly impressive." "What then?" I asked, curious. "The way you've transformed your pain into purpose. You could have just focused on revenge or getting even with Ryan. Instead, you've created something meaningful that will help other women avoid the same situation." His observation resonated deeply. The past year had taught me that reclaiming my power wasn't just about exposing Ryan's lies or taking back my company. It was about using my experience to create positive change for others while rebuilding a life that truly reflected my values. As I look back on everything that happened, I realized that the empire I built was never about the technology or the billion-dollar valuation. The real empire is the life I've created on my own terms, the relationships built on mutual respect, the young women I'm helping to succeed without sacrificing their identity, the daughter I'm raising to know her worth from the beginning. Ryan thought he could take my company because he had forgotten who really built it. But in the end, he taught me an invaluable lesson. Never allow anyone else to claim ownership of what you've created, whether it's a business, a relationship, or your sense of self-worth. Your empire belongs to you alone. Have you ever had to reclaim something that was rightfully yours? Whether in business, relationships, or just getting proper credit for your work? Share your story in the comments below. And if you found my journey inspiring, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, your name belongs on everything you build.